Yeah, so what's going on at Stampede? Now, typically, I know in the past, and the Prime Minister's event was always a big deal. It's kind of different now. Is Stephen Harper, is he doing one last Stampede event?
Yeah, the Prime Minister is having a former Prime Minister, to catch myself there. He is having a Stampede barbecue. His EDA is hosting on Saturday night. Ronna Ambrose will also be in attendance, giving a keynote address there too. Look, Stampede is a time. It's one of those constants in Calgary's history, right? Year after year, we can be going through economic ups and downs. We take some time to celebrate our Western heritage, and the Stampede is such an important tourism draw for Calgary. There's a lot of people who are, employed because of it. So it's, I think it's something that kind of grounds me back to the community too. So I'm looking forward to flipping another, 10,000 pancakes in the next week, smelling like a pancake. Having my hair smell like pancake. Yeah. So it'll be fun. It's good.
What about the current Prime Minister? Are you going to bump into him, you think?
Oh, one never knows who you'll end up with on the pancake line.
But he'll probably be out here, won't he?
In that case, but I would assume so. I think it's important for Alberta to be in the federal spotlight right now. Again, I said this earlier. I kind of, and I don't know what your sense is here from your other guests too. It would be interesting for me to know. I just don't feel like the economic situation in Alberta has gotten the attention that it deserves. We've been trying to put that on the front burner. It's been something I've been trying to speak at in the House of Commons. When you're in Eastern Canada, you kind of you're in Central Canada, you hear about Bombardier, you hear about all these things. I remember and I'm not trying to diminish economic issues in the other parts of the country, but I am an Alberta MP, so it kind of surprises me. Mm-hmm. We've had so many job losses here that the reaction has been, from the federal government right now to put more uncertainty into the energy sector in terms of the regulatory process, right? They're reviewing how projects are reviewed. It sounds very bureaucratic, but that's a code for investment uncertainty. Yeah. Labor uncertainty, people are saying, should I stay in the province? Increased taxes, payroll taxes, all of these things, they don't help the province. So, if he comes here, I hope that he understands it's not just for a photo op for Stampede, right? There are so many people this year who are out of work and are really hurting here that are looking to him to do exactly the opposite of what he has been doing, and that is create uncertainty and limited economic prospects for this province.
Well, yeah, it's weird because, and then you hear these stories about how behind the scenes they're worried about Alberta. Behind the scenes they're talking about how they got to get pipelines built. That's so important to economic growth, and that's what any government wants to see. But yet, publicly, we don't really see or hear that. So I don't know how to put that together, because I think they're smart enough to recognize that it's not good for the country.
No, and they sort of perpetuate these myths, right? Well, the Harper government couldn't get these built because of their environmental policy. Well, if you actually look at our greenhouse gas emission growth in the country, it was under our government that we actually saw the growth of greenhouse gas emissions decline while our economy grew, right? And we put in place very strict regulations in the coal-fired electricity sector. We're an international leader in that. That was a Harper government, legacy. I could talk your ear off on GHG emission strategy, but I could also look at some of the things that we put in place around environmental review, tanker safety, pipeline monitoring, the oil and the oil sands monitoring framework. There's so many things that they're just trying to, I think, and people who are listening to this say, well, what would you do, Rempel? What would you do differently? Well, I wouldn't put the uncertainty that they have into the marketplace right now. Really, the Trudeau government has to come out and, sort of get off the fence. You're either supporting the energy industry or you're not. If you're ideologically opposed to the energy industry, just tell us that. Just come right out. Don't try and, beat around the bush and try and earn votes out here and wave to us during Stampede when you are clearly trying to kill the industry. I'll stand up and have that debate in the House of Commons. If you're saying that you don't want to have the energy sector in Canada anymore, if you don't want that to happen, let's have that conversation. But don't hide that ideological aversion to this by policies that aren't helping, Albertans get back to work. And I support the sustainable development of our energy sector. And I think most Albertans do too. So I find it's like the national energy policy or the national energy plan, but piecemealed out so that they can't. I think, he's learned from his father. He didn't put a title on it. But it's so frustrating. It actually just makes me crazy to see this happen and that there isn't national outcry about this.
Well, it should be. Now, yeah, you look at the projects that are on the table, and, he's avoiding having to make a decision, which maybe serves him well, that he can play both sides of it. But push is going to come to shove, and he's going to have to make a decision. And if he really believes in these pipelines, he's going to have to be a champion for them, isn't he?
Well, I think so.
Because there's going to be a fight, a big fight.
I've always believed, my personal opinion is that the role of government in the energy sector debate is to be a credible regulator, as well as, so basically ensuring that the public knows that government is doing its due diligence to make sure that these projects are safe, and also to make the economic argument around the energy sector. I think that we can have growth in the energy sector and our energy products, as well as environmental sustainability. I look at some of the clean technologies that we have in the province here, how they've been deployed, the corporate social responsibility of many of the people that used to work for the energy sector who are now laid off are responsible for laying out. And I hate that this has become this political conversation. And, are we guilty of that to a certain extent? Sure we are. But, when you look across the table at me here and say, oh, well, he's going to have to make a decision. It might be good for him. It might not be. That's not what this is about. It's really not. This is about, the engineer who got laid off, who's had the same job for 20 years, who doesn't know what to do right now. It's about the rig hand who hasn't had work in 2 years. It's about the service industry who has provided, meals or whatever, maintenance for these projects, who really don't see a lot of prospect and growth. And we have to talk about this. This isn't a political exercise. These are people's lives. And I hope that that's what the rest of Canada sees, because a strong Alberta has always meant a strong Canada. It's, our GDP grew because of this province, the energy sector, and it's so frustrating. So, if he's going to tip his hat to Alberta during the Stampede, he needs to be honest with Albertans about how he feels about the energy sector. No, and I don't think it's as warm and fuzzy as he might make it out to be.
All right. Michelle, we're out of time. Got to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming in here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate this. There you go. Calgary No Sale MP Michelle Rempel. Back to wrap things up right after this.